From the inevitable pressure of being a James, to his profile potentially surprising a few disbelievers, here's all you need to know about whether Bronny James will be a disappointment in the NBA or not. First of all, he won't be able to shake off his father's name, and that could be a big problem for Bronny. You can talk about rising above the pressure all you want, but when you're the son of the greatest basketball player of all time, the bulk of expectations isn't a joke. It likely takes its toll on Bronny too, because let's not forget, LeBron was hyped long before he even became draft eligible. The man was making the covers of Sports Illustrated before entering the NBA, and Bronny's not quite expected to go down the same route, but he's expected to be really good as well. Everything he does from the minute he arrives will get compared to his father's huge legacy, and I'm not one to make big predictions, but let's just say, he's not getting even close to that. Bronny will be pitted against a man who has the most points in NBA history, fourth most assists, a four-time NBA champion, four-time MVP, and of course, a 19-time NBA All-Star. That said, where a son should feel proud of his father's achievements, Bronny will be compared against them, and that's unfair, I agree. But it's just how the world works. LeBron was the Rookie of the Year during his first season, and the media will definitely challenge Bronny to at least make the All-Rookie first team when he inevitably makes his debut. Given the quality of his draft class, it's not going to be easy, but who said anything about easy? The problem is, social media and mainstream media play a huge role in determining how good a player turns out to be. That's going to be the case with Bronny too, because even if he is actually a good player, he'll need to produce a lot more to avoid the allegations. That still might not be enough, as we've seen that even the modern-day greats get crucified by fans if they don't perform to the same level, week in, week out. You can't expect a youngster like Bronny to come up with consistency in his early days, and that's where it'll get quite tricky for him. How does he respond when everyone's waiting in line to take shots at him? How does he continue playing the way he does even after a couple of tough games? Because no matter how good you are, you have bad days. And for players like Bronny, the bad days will get magnified a lot. Check out this very video, for instance. We're already making predictions about how Bronny turns out to be, and comparing him to LeBron, that's what Bronny will have to deal with. Unrealistic expectations and getting measured against a scale that no one should have to. Because LeBron was an anomaly. No one else has a story like he does. No one else coped with the pressure like he did. Bronny has the same genes, but it'll take a miracle and a prayer for him to even get near to what LeBron did. Enough about the pressure. There are more reasons why Bronny could be an underwhelming pick, and a lot has to do with how he's not as highly rated as was back in his youth days. If you think the expectations from Bronny are high right now, rewind the clock to 4 or 5 years ago, when he was actually considered a top 3 talent among his age group. Given he grew up with the golden spoon of the greatest ever coaching him, people expected Bronny to come out all guns blazing. Unfortunately, nature doesn't care who you are and what your surname is, which is why he didn't grow into the same frame as he was projected to. That cost him quite a bit, and it's absurd, but people were already writing off a very young teenager. Like I said earlier, this is a cutthroat market. You gotta know how to mute the outside talk and still keep on improving to have a chance of succeeding. Despite falling below others in the projected list of youngsters, Bronny kept playing the way he always did and has become more suited to a backcourt role. Mind you, he was still a high-level prospect, even with all this criticism. But as of the latest evaluations, LeBron's son is not a top 10 player in his recruiting class. Most scouts have him as 4-star prospect, but it's not barely 4-star, it's 4 for sure, with a potential for 5. Let's be honest, he was never going to be the number 1 pick like his father. And while the top 10 would be great, it'll still be very cool if Bronny goes in the top 20 as well. He clearly has the talent to succeed too. Even if you take off the rose-tinted, biased shades, there's a player here for sure. He's a thick and strong all-combo guard, standing at 6'3", and generates an insane bounce when playing. Not being the tallest means that Bronny has to rely on that bounce, and does a wonderful job of getting the most out of it. He's not shy to dunk the ball, and that's something you can see he picked from his famous father. More importantly, he's got good length, and that's going to help him run into the post quite a bit when he does make the switch to the NBA eventually. Another thing that he inherited from his father is his leadership ability, and that makes any player better than he already is. Confidence is a weapon in the hands of a young player, And Bronny has just the right amount of it. The thing that'll guarantee how far he goes in the NBA, though, is his all-around defense. And from what I've seen so far, it looks pretty solid. If you've seen a little bit of this young whiz, you'll notice that he's got some shades of playmaking that another very famous James does, not to mention, Bronny's more than happy to make the right play. Even if it means finding the right pass or dunking it in with authority, I wouldn't classify him as a shooter. And that's why if he's going to stick in the backcourt, it'll be as a point guard and not as a shooting guard. For that to happen, Bronny needs more work on his ball handling, because in the NBA, that's going to come in handy. For me, if he can become a decent handler, he'll have a chance to become a special player in the NBA for decades to come. Remember how I said that he's not considered a shooter? Well, it's not because he doesn't know how to shoot. If things go well, I expect him to be much better than his father from outside the range. That's because he's got solid shooting mechanics, a lot of work ethic to work on his knockdown shooting, and the courage to take those shots no matter what. As far as comparisons are concerned, I see Bronny as a George Hill or Avery Bradley, but with higher potential. Those names might not be too fancy and don't move anyone, I get that. But I did say more potential. From what I've seen of young James so far, he doesn't have any overarching skills. He's more of a connector, and I see that particular trait translating in the NBA more than any other. James will be used as a defender in his early days, contributing like a bulldog on the defensive end, and showing that he's picked up many things from his father's reading of the game. His positioning is excellent, instincts are elite, and should quickly become known for his ability to steal a pass or get a deflection. He's also got tremendous versatility in his craft, and where most analysts prefer players with a crystal-clear role, Bronny, with his versatility, could play a number of roles. On that note, the most promising aspect of his game, for me, are the intangibles, and that's why I genuinely feel he'll surprise many in a great way. You'd expect LeBron's son to expect that things are handed down to him, right? Bronny's not like that at all. He loves putting in the hard yards, competing at the highest level, fighting for every 50-50, and his hustle is fantastic to see. It's clear that he wants to become his own player and not walk in the trail blazed by his father. I respect that. Having his ego in check will make him much better over the years, and if he continues on this upward trajectory, there's a lot of upside, because he's got the physical tools to become an important NBA player. Hopefully he fulfills his father's dream and gets to play alongside him in the NBA before he retires for good. All I know is Bronny's the perfect heir to his father's throne, and he'll carry the family name with pride. If he doesn't, well, then there's another young James, another high-level prospect, waiting in the wings to take over. So from his profile potentially surprising a few disbelievers to the inevitable pressure of being a James, this was all you needed to know about how Bronny James will turn out to be in the NBA.